In Washington, D.C., the crisp autumn air carries the sound of motorcades pulling up to the doors of the U.S. Treasury. Inside, finance ministers from the world's largest economies are gathering, the Group of Seven, or G7, for a meeting that could shape the next phase of global economic policy and the war in Ukraine. Among them is European Commissioner for Economy and Productivity, Valdis Dombrovskis. His message is clear and strategic. The European Union wants its G7 partners to join a plan that would tap into immobilized Russian assets, using them to fund Ukraine's recovery and resilience. Dombrovskis sits for an interview with AFP, explaining that this moment is not just about numbers or balance sheets, but about political will.
So from the EU side, I will be outlining what we are now preparing in terms of a reparation loan, foreseeing the use of cash balances linked with immobilized Russian assets to provide a non-recourse loan to Ukraine, which Ukraine would only need to repay once Russia pays reparations.
He adds that the European Union wants other G7 members, the United States, Canada, Japan and the United Kingdom, to align their positions.
And encouraging also other G7 partners to look on what they can do with immobilized Russian assets which are on their territories.
The bigger picture. The EU's move comes amid a broader rethinking of how to sustain Ukraine's economy while ensuring that the cost of Russia's invasion is eventually borne by Moscow. For months, European capitals have debated how to legally use frozen Russian funds, estimated at hundreds of billions of euros, without violating international law or financial stability. Now, the bloc's economic leadership believes it has found a workable framework, a reparation loan model. This approach channels the interest or cash balances generated by frozen assets rather than the assets themselves toward immediate support for Kyiv. The initiative is already gaining traction.
We have agreed at G7 finance ministerial level to work in a coordinated way on using of those cash balances linked with Russian assets, and indeed UK and Canada have already indicated willingness to work alongside with the EU's reparation loan model. So we're also awaiting more concrete responses from US and Japan. What are their intentions in this regard?
As Dombrovskis explains, coordination is key. Fragmented or unilateral moves could destabilize financial markets or undermine the legal basis for asset use. But if the G7 acts together, the message to Moscow and to global investors would be one of unity and resolve. A second front, China's rare earth controls. Yet the Washington meetings are not focused solely on Russia. Another challenge looms large: China's decision to expand its export controls on critical minerals, the rare earth elements that power electric vehicles, renewable energy technologies, and advanced microchips. Dombrovskis' tone sharpens slightly when the subject turns to Beijing.
Indeed, obviously it's a cause of concern that China has now expanded substantially the export controls, both in terms of number of minerals covered, but also in terms of covering actually entire value chains.
These words echo a growing unease among Western policymakers. Rare earths may sound obscure, but they are central to the technologies shaping the future, from batteries and wind turbines to guided missiles and satellites. The European Union, like the United States and Japan, depends heavily on Chinese exports. A sudden tightening of supply can send shockwaves through entire industries.
So from EU side, we are willing to discuss what is the best way to approach it, both in short term, but also in the longer term. It's obvious that we need to work on diversification of our supply chains.
For Dombrovskis, the answer lies in resilience, not confrontation.
And that's why already for some years at the EU level we are working on a critical raw materials strategy, engaging in raw materials partnerships with various countries around the world to ensure diversified and thus resilient supply chain.
The European Commission's Critical Raw Materials Act, passed earlier this year, is part of that push. It aims to source, recycle and process more minerals within Europe while building long-term partnerships in Africa, Latin America and Australia. Still, Dombrovskis emphasises that decisions on how to respond to China's latest restrictions are not yet finalised.
Well, as I said, no concrete decisions are taken from the EU at this side, but we are ready to engage and to coordinate those approaches, including at G7 level.
Balancing the global economic chessboard. The twin challenges of Russia's war and China's trade controls have forced Europe to navigate an increasingly complex global economic landscape. Brussels, Washington, Tokyo and Ottawa are now not only partners in trade, they are partners in strategy. At stake is the question of how democratic economies can remain open, yet protected from coercion, cooperative, yet competitive, globalized, yet secure. As the world adjusts to new geopolitical realities, Dombrovskis' remarks reflect a larger European goal: economic sovereignty, the ability to act independently, decisively, and with allies when necessary. The European Union, long seen as a market-driven project, is increasingly becoming a geopolitical actor. Its trade policies are now instruments of security, its budgets are weapons of diplomacy, and its financial tools, like the reparation loan proposal, are being used to uphold the international order. Watching the numbers and the politics, but even as the EU looks outward, it must also look inward. Dombrovskis, who also oversees implementation and simplification within the European Commission, is keeping a close watch on member states' fiscal positions. France, in particular, has drawn attention after suspending parts of its controversial pension reform, a move that carries major budgetary consequences.
Yes, we are following closely now the work on preparation on next year's budget, also the fiscal implications on suspension of the pensions reform, because there are quite sizable fiscal implications. So it's important that indeed there are measures taken how to ensure that France still meets its commitments in line with its medium-term fiscal structural plan.
He continues with a note of caution, but also recognition of progress.
We see that as regards this year, the French budget appears to be broadly on track. We know that the French government is working also to ensure alignment with the fiscal trajectory also as regards next year, but we'll have to see the concrete proposals and concrete fiscal implications to make some more concrete comments and opinion.
The remarks show the delicate balance Brussels must maintain, promoting unity among member states while enforcing rules designed to prevent excessive deficits. It's a reminder that even as the EU faces global challenges, internal discipline remains essential. The broader message: across Washington's corridors of power, Dombrovskis' words resonate. They speak to a Europe that is assertive, pragmatic, and increasingly global in its outlook. At a time when the world economy is being reshaped by war, sanctions, and technological rivalry, the European Union is positioning itself as both a bridge and a bulwark to cooperation among democratic allies and a bulwark against economic coercion from autocratic powers. The plan to use Russian assets for Ukraine is not just financial engineering. It is a statement that aggression has costs, that accountability must be enforced, and that solidarity has tangible form. Likewise, the discussions on rare earths are more than technical debates. They are about the future of industrial independence, green energy, and strategic autonomy. As the G7 finance ministers conclude their meetings, the cameras capture a moment of quiet diplomacy. A handshake here, a brief exchange there. These gestures may seem routine, but behind them lies a tectonic shift in how the world's democracies are learning to use economics as a tool of power, principle, and protection. And for Europe, represented by Valdis Dombrovskis, that shift is already well underway. In a single interview, he has outlined not just policy, but vision, a Europe that acts with unity, thinks globally, and understands that in today's world, economics is not separate from security. It is the front line.